So, very welcome to my session. And my name is Tracy van der Schuyf. I am all the way from sunny South Africa, and it's still sunny outside. It's 3 p.m. now, so we still have a couple of hours left of sunlight out there. I focus, of course, on modern workplace, Office 365. I'm also business applications MVP, so also on the Power Platform side. And my life mission is to facilitate the evolution of human capabilities. Okay, so I'm very focused on helping people to empower them and to help them achieve more. So there's just a kind of a who I am. So it's just there's the crazy goal and my mission statement. So you can find me on the social medias. If we haven't connected yet, please grow your Microsoft community. It's absolutely the best community in the world. It's the best community in the world. Okay, there's no getting around from it. It's the best community in the world. So please do that. Reach out and become part of the best community in the world if you've not joined them. Okay, so let's get cracking with what I want to cover today. Okay, so my session, I mentioned wayfinding and I spoke about Viva Connections. Okay, so if I think of wayfinding, and I'm going to explain all of those, and Viva Connections and Teams, of course, I want you to know that if you know me, you will know this, but if you don't, I'm going to probably talk more about people than I am about technology because they actually make stuff work. Okay, so the first thing I do want to go through is the evolution of finding stuff. I've actually, over the last 10 years, I've actually included that into conference sessions quite often. So the evolution of finding stuff. I also want to just touch on what wayfinding is and why are we suddenly seeing this popping up in blogs and articles and things on the web. So suddenly this has become a hot topic as wayfinding. Then because of the wayfinding topic, I want to talk about the navigation in Windows and Office 365. So how should people be navigating? Because we've got to change some habits. And I'm going to talk about the navigation in Teams as well, because Teams is my hub or my ecosystem where everything happens. I will be touching on the role that Viva Connections will be playing in all of this because I'm quite a big fan. And then, of course, closing and any questions that we can start going through that. So let's take a look and let's start with the evolution of finding stuff. Okay, now I'm going to use an example of yahoo.com. Okay, and I know that sounds strange on a Microsoft like type of conference, but there's a reason why I'm going to do this. And I want to remind you that the first site that came up for yahoo.com, so I'm talking about a search engine, of course, okay, this is what it looked like. Okay, I couldn't get a better quality picture, but I bet you it was as bad quality in real life as well. I'm pretty sure of it. But this kind of like was launched in 1994. Okay, so that was kind of the first search engine that people were exposed to, and you can see it's pretty much just a list of things that people could click on. Okay, there was search there. I'm pretty sure it didn't work that well, but this was in 1994. Okay, if we go one step further, the next kind of review we saw of yahoo.com was started getting a little bit more branded, if I can call it that. They started adding a bit more graphics. It was still a little bit crazy, but this was in 1996. Okay, so what's that? Like a lot of years ago. So 1996. Okay, now let's look at the next version. So the next version up, we are saying that they then went, and this was about in 1998, okay, they then brought out two what I would call target audience type of versions, yahoo.com. Okay, so the first one was this Hooligans, which was for the younger audience, so for kids, and then the second one was the seniors guide, which I think is quite funny. I actually prefer the seniors guide, which means I'm obviously giving my age away, but this is pretty much what it looked like in 1998. So let's take a step further. In 2005, they then started making quite much bigger upgrades to what their like UI looked like. Okay, and you'll start seeing a lot more images and graphics. Their menus are starting to be a bit aligned. They're using this typical web part type of look and feel for the site. So that was in 2005, and 1 year later, well, not 1 year later, but to current day, that this is kind of what yahoo.com looks like. Now, I have to admit, I didn't actually know that yahoo.com still exists. I had no idea. But with doing the research, I was quite surprised to find out that apparently they are still out there. But you'll see something big that's changed here. So, I mean, that was 2016, by the way, and this is the final that you can look at for yahoo.com. So you'll see that even SharePoint kind of followed the same, where banners and graphics and the newsletter style digest type of ideas. So just look at those a couple of years. So from that first launch, 1994, all that way up to where we are today. So let's quickly count that out. 1994, it was 2004, it was 2014, it's 2024. So that's 30 years minus like a couple of years. Okay, that's quite scary how long ago that is. Now, if we look at how technology has evolved, and the reason why I used Yahoo was just a much better example for me to go through. Google was launched in 1998, and Bing was actually launched in 2009. Okay, so if you're one of those people who dishes Bing, like me, but if you say that Bing doesn't quite work like Google does, is because Google had quite a couple of years ahead of Bing. Okay, so it takes time to build strong search engines like that. So give it time, it'll get there. But Yahoo was definitely a good example to use because it gives you a great example of where we've come from, how the navigation worked in the beginning. So pretty much, I don't know, scary 25 years ago, and kind of where we are today. So how that has changed, how we're helping people navigate, how we are giving or delivering content to people has had a major impact. Okay, and of course that's very, very important in the session that I'm delivering is talking about how technology has changed. Now, going back to the evolution of finding stuff, I'd like to remind you of something. And that is that I actually don't care how pretty you make the technology that the users work on, but if they're not empowered, they're not going to get it and they're not going to use it wisely. Okay, so if I look at the journey that we've gone from getting to my stuff, okay, finding the documents that I've worked on, finding the recent file that I just used or the thing that someone shared with me, etc. It had this gradual curve to where the technology is of what we use today. So I start at the lowest form of the evolution of finding my stuff, and that is putting stuff where you can see it. Okay, and what I mean by that, perfect example, is putting everything on your desktop. And there's still people today that puts everything on their desktops because they tell me, Trace, I put it on my desktop because if I put it there, then I can find it because they're putting it where they can see it. It's like people walking into their homes and putting the key and their cell phone and their wallet down by the front door because it's right there where they want to see it. It's probably safer inside of a cupboard or in a drawer, but that's what we do. So users saving stuff on their desktops is still pretty much an example of putting stuff where they can see it, and that's how they can find it. Lowest form of the evolution of finding your stuff, by the way, still struggling with employees that are saving things on their desktops. Then, oh, that was a pretty quick click. Then the second level up is navigating. So that's navigating through folders to get to the content that I work with. That is also navigating through menu structures, okay, or navigating through global navigation. So the way that we navigate, it's a click through and then another click and then another click. So that's like building breadcrumbs to get to the content that you work with. So we're still leading our users to a specific point. I think navigating to where you want to be is the same as still using a paper map versus search is using a map that you can search for a location on your phone. So that just gives you a context of how far that is still behind when we look at technology. So people still navigating to content is definitely not evolved as well to the point. There's certain content that I still navigate to, don't make a mistake, but the majority of my content I search for. So it depends on what it is that I'm working with, but majority, 90% of what I do, I actually search my content. I don't navigate to content. The third level up, so we're making progress, is search. Okay, so being able to search for a file in SharePoint, in Teams, in wherever, on your computer as well, going to Google and searching for things. So remember that first version of yahoo.com was 1994. People pretty much navigated. You would click on a link and go to the next link and go to the next link and see how technology has changed. The highest level for me is discovery. Okay, and discovery is where the technology already is that we are using today. That's think of Delve, think of Office Graph, where it says, hey, here's files you could be interested in that your team members are working with. Or if you click on someone's contact card, it actually shows you files that you've worked with them already. Or it's making suggestions. Think of the AI that's built into our Office apps. the Viva email that you get with reminders of what you're supposed to do every day, where it says that, hey, Trace, you reminded someone, or you said to someone in a mail that you're going to send them this and this, and you've not sent that. Okay, so for me, that's discovery phase. Sadly, if I can burst your bubble for you, most of our users are stuck between C and navigate, and it's not their fault. I just want to get that out there. It's not their fault. If you're a manager, or you're a change management person, or you're a trainer, or you're in IT, then it's our fault. By the way, it's not the employee's fault. It's our fault, because we've spoon-fed them for years. We didn't introduce them to autonomous technology, and now we've launched autonomous technology, and they're not mature enough to actually work with it. So let's talk about wayfinding now. So I went through a couple of bits of what I think is important when it comes to search. Now, wayfinding is defined as the cognitive and corporeal process and experience of locating, following, and discovering a route through and to a given space. So Paul Simmons said that, a route through and to a given space. I think what's important here is the word discovering, because technology is changing to discovering. Okay, it's being, and think of insights, think of topics, think of Viva Connections, and these type of things that are being brought into technology. So typically, if you search for wayfinding, you search or go on Google or on Bing and you search for graphics, this is the type of graphic that come up. This would be the oldest versions of wayfinding, where you find the signpost that says, you know, Cape Town's this way, Joburg's that way, Pretoria is that way, or Sydney is 25 million miles that way. But we have the same concepts in the technology that we use. So where's my files? Where's my processes? Where's the templates that I work with? Where's the links that I work with? And that's something we have to start concentrating on more. So just some other quick examples with where you can see your wayfinding in your everyday life. Of course, that is a typical example of wayfinding. That's a really cool example of wayfinding, by the way. And that as well, we're seeing this a lot in buildings. We see this a lot in office parks, in offices. So a brilliant way of using wayfinding to help people navigate to where it is that they need to go. So that's wayfinding. Wayfinding is building out this kind of idea of helping people get to where they must be. And it consists of various things. It doesn't just consist of physical signs. Now, I want to first go back to navigating Windows and Office 365. We're always got to go back to basics. So before we get into the whole what the new technologies and the new functions and features can give us, I think we need to take a step back and say, what do we already have? Because they have to adopt what they already have before they can adopt new things. So I introduce you to the folder inception. Okay. Now, if I talk about the folder inception, and that is a beautifully crafted example, that is not how people build folders. It goes much messier than that. It goes much deeper than that. It's much messier than that. But typically, that's the way that they've always done it. They build folders inside of folders, inside of folders, inside of folders, okay? The challenge with this is that you're stuck in someone else's dream. So whoever built those structures, if you work together, when you're stuck in that way of thinking, you can't think of it in different ways. You can't navigate to the content in different ways unless you search, okay? So that's quite a dangerous thing, and most people still work like this. We know that the technology that we use today is struggling with this because it affects your search, it affects the performance, and people are complaining, teams are slow, I can't navigate fast enough to my documents, and it's actually because we're still using old ways of doing things in new technology. So this folder inception is definitely a challenge, and that needs to change for us to adopt the new ways of working and the new wayfinding ways that Viva Connections also brings, and Teams brings into the picture. So that type of nested folder, beautifulness that you see there, that beautiful folder inception is what causes this type of stuff that happens. I have users coming to me and saying, I can't find my files, I can't work without, where's my favorites web part that used to be on the intranet, or where is all my folders that was on my desktop, and I can't work like this, Trace. I mean, we're stopping the business. I mean, this is never going to work. That's the type of stuff that happens if we don't put focus on the correct things, which is empowering our users. Very, very important. So your users are not difficult. You might think they are, but your users are not difficult. They are afraid and they've not been empowered. And I think that's important to take note of. They're afraid and they have not been empowered. People that are empowered and that can then step out of their comfort zone are more open to accept new possibilities, to learn new ways of doing things, and will complain less, okay? They'll complain less. So in a workplace, training reduces the wine. In my home, wine reduces the wine. So I just thought I'd put that out there. But in the workplace, people, if we empower our people and we train them, they'll complain less. I'm saying complain in brackets, okay, or in quotes, because I don't see it as complaining. I see it as them. It's a cry for help, but they don't know how to express it. So how do they express it? I don't like this technology. I don't want to change. No one's helping me. No one told me about this project, okay? That's what happens when people aren't empowered, okay? So I'm not blaming them. I do get mad sometimes, but I'm not blaming them. So very important. Your users are not the difficult ones. So let's talk about the windows for a moment, okay? And what I do want to talk about is your Windows button. Because again, I'm saying you have to go back to basics. Before I show you new amazing things that Viva Connections and Teams can give you, I need to remind you of going back to the basics with your end users, because they need to go play catch up from the stuff that they missed out on in the last 20 or 30 years. Because for 20 or 30 years, we've not taught them right. We've spoon-fed them. We fixed their things for them. We even created shortcuts on their desktops for them. So don't come cry to me now when you say that my users aren't searching, Trace. You're the reason your users aren't searching, because you put everything for them on their desktops, putting it out there. So the Windows button, and I'm not talking about the one on your screen, people. I'm talking about the one on your keyboard. Unbelievable. It's the first thing I teach my students. I don't care what course it is that I'm training them. I teach my students that they can search their PC. And remember, if OneDrive is synced, if Teams libraries are synced down, it means it can search any of those libraries, people. Windows button on my keyboard, not the one on my screen. Windows button on my keyboard searches for files, searches for settings, searches for applications. I don't use shortcuts on my desktops or open apps. Who does that? My grandmother doesn't even do that. But why are we still allowing our users to do this? And you know that when I show people the Windows button in a training session, you know that they say to me, Trace, that is amazing. How did I never know this? That Microsoft launched this in Windows 8. I'm like, no, cupcake. September 1994. September 1994. Now, admittedly, the search probably wasn't that great back then, but it was launched then. It was already usable back then. That's 28 years ago, people. How are we not helping people catch up? How are we not helping them understand what it is that they need to do? We need to help people. Windows button is the lowest form of starting to help your end users. So then also, if I just think of in Office, anyone that remembers Office 2003, I'm not scared to say I'm 47. I started working when I was young. So for the last, 32 years, I've been going through a lot of versions of a lot of crazy apps that I've used. Excel 2007 or 2003 or Office 2003 had drop-down menus, in case you don't remember that. In 2007, they brought out Windows. Big shocker, it brought the world to its knees. Microsoft had to go. Someone developed a little app that people could click on and say, where's my print button now? Unbelievable, because we didn't help them actually step over that change. Now in Office these days, I don't even have to know where it is anymore. I actually just ask it. I'm a trainer for Microsoft and I don't know where stuff is, okay? I don't know where stuff is. Absolutely, even SharePoint in 2003. So I just ask it, because there's too many things being added. And you know what? I want to keep space in my brain for better things, like the name of my friends and cool places to go, okay? I'm going to let the robot think for me where I don't have to think for me. So start using the stuff in Office and make sure that your end users know this before you want to teach them new cool things that's in Viva Connections and Teams. You've got to fix the basics first. In Office, they can type and say, I'm looking for ideas. I don't know where the button is. Who knows where the button is? I don't know where the dictate button is. Who cares? The robot knows, and that's perfect. I have my own assistant that knows. So another cool idea, and this is all ways of navigating, people. Creating easier ways for yourself and adopting easier ways to navigate your content is also, because that's changed. Autonomous technology puts some of the responsibility back to the user to also do things for themselves, which include things like using quick access. Do you know that most of our users aren't using it? They're still navigating to that 15th level deep folder every single day. Why did we never teach them to right-click and save it as a quick access? Because why? We assume that everyone knows, and we're wrong. And when I say wrong, I'm saying IT, whoever, we're wrong. They don't know. So also, what you can do is you can go into your view panel at the top, and you can also say, don't show the recent used files, because it normally shows recent use files as well. So remember about the quick access. Go tell your users this. I'm here to remind you of these things. Search. Let's talk about Boolean operators. I'm a motorbike girl. I've got way too many motorbikes, okay? I don't have a Ducati Monster anymore, which really makes me sad, but I still Google it quite often. So if I had to go to Google and I wanted to search something, okay, I would normally type in the words that I'm searching for, and there you can see I found 11,300,000 results. That's quite a lot of results, by the way. So you know how many of your users are still paging to the other pages in Google? If you use Boolean operators by eliminating and promoting some of your search results, 11,300,000 results. Check it out. One result. I don't know when anyone's ever gotten one result in Google. Why are we not teaching this to our employees? And that works in other apps as well, by the way, not just in Google. Boolean operators. We're not teaching basics to our users. I don't get it. Here's another great example, making the way they find their stuff easier. If you're in Outlook, you can go to the View tab, you can go to To-Do, and you can switch on your calendar on the side. They don't have to navigate between the two. Why are we not showing this to our end users? I use this all the time because I don't have to click on the calendar button. Who's got time for that? Which means I save, I don't know, 30 minutes a day or 20 minutes a day. Okay, so that's basic Office stuff. I wanted to remind you of that. Let's talk about Teams navigation. I'm going to start with the basics again, because when we talk about wayfinding, all we're thinking is navigation. We're thinking drop-down menus and buttons and flickering, I don't know, stars or something. It's not. It starts at the basics. It starts with how when I log into my PC in the morning, find the stuff that I work with all the time. It could be shortcuts. It could be the way that I navigate. Chat's one of the places, people. Show your users how to pin a chat, show your users how to hide a chat, show your users how to mute or unmute a chat as well. This helps them find things faster, because the messier Teams is, the less they'll find. And you know what they do? Oh, Trace, Teams sucks, man. It's like, oh, there's so many teams and I don't know what's going on there. Why? Because they over-adopted Teams and no one ever taught them any governance or strategy. It's not their fault. But now they're hating the product because they think it's the product's fault. Teach them good practice when it comes to chat so that they can have a simpler, minimalistic experience and they can find what it is that they're looking for. Because it's near impossible searching for someone's name there and finding the chat that you were in, by the way. But if you rename your chats, check it out. I rename it. And of course, I put little blingy pictures in there because I have 101 tattoos. It's what we do. Teach them how to take control of their chats better. Same goes for their teams and their channels. Teach them that they can pin a channel. Teach them that they can show a team. Teach them that they can hide a team. It reduces the noise in their teams. It helps them focus on what's right. If you reduce the noise, they navigate better and they find what it is that they're looking for. Because you know what it is that we want? I'm not after people adopting Microsoft 365 and Viva, people. I'm after people adopting a better way to work and find the stuff that they're looking for. That's what I want. If I can do it with that technology, then it's a win. Start focusing on solving the problem that they have. If I look inside of Teams as well, just going straight to the files button. It's another way of them finding their stuff. I'm not building navigation for them yet, but you need to teach them this, because what are they waiting for? They're waiting to be spoon-fed. I want a web part that shows me everything I need. And I'm like, no, my sweetie, you don't need that anymore, but let me show you. There's all my recent files across Office 365. There's all my files across Microsoft Teams, even tells me which team it's in, even tells me which folder or channel or wherever it's stored. How amazing is that? Chronological order. I don't have to click a button. I can go straight to my OneDrive files as well from the files button in Teams. A lot of your users are not knowing that, but I bet you that you're assuming that they do. The / files in the command box at the top. Brilliant. Immediately shows me the last 10 files I worked with. No one can beat that with any other way navigating to the document that they last worked on. I'm sorry, challenge accepted. We can do an online session about this, challenge accepted. No one can get to their last documents faster by going / files. That's the fastest way. Again, our users don't know this. We're not teaching them this because we assume that they know, or we assume that they have / help and they can solve it for themselves. You're making a mistake. We never taught our users to help themselves and teach themselves. So now we're standing back and wanting them to adopt autonomous technology. Also, here's just another example. I add my mail account to tabs on Teams. Why not? If I work in Teams most of the time, why can't I not see my mail there? It's not going to open up my mails for someone else. It authenticates for that person that's logged in there. Yes, Microsoft, if you're listening, I would like a little Outlook button there. Thank you very much. Christmas is coming up soon. I'd like my Outlook button there. But for now, I'll add it as a tab. It's another way to make an end user's life easier to find what it is. They don't have to minimize Teams. They don't have to open up Outlook. Why? Also, please remember, every channel is a folder in your SharePoint document library. Okay, so if we talk about navigating, of course, they can go straight to SharePoint for alerts, for versions, for the recycle bin, cool things like that. They can also sync that library down, but make sure that you tell them that this is a we environment, it's not a me environment. They can't select all those documents and delete it because, I don't want to see it on my PC anymore. You can't blame them if they do, if you didn't tell them. If you set up alerts on the SharePoint library, like I teach all my team's owners, then they'll know if that accidentally happens. People are not malicious by nature, but sometimes mistakes happen. So tell them about that, how easy it is to find stuff straight there in their Explorer. Also, if someone shares a folder with you in OneDrive, or they share a folder with you out of Teams, you can go to the OneDrive client, you can open that and set it as a shortcut in your OneDrive. You'll see it right there in your OneDrive. You don't have to go and look for that email again, because who can ever find that email again? Especially when you say send link, because it sends it from some ARB account that doesn't say Tracy van der Schuyf. No one can find it again, so teacher uses to create shortcuts to the files that they're looking for. Very important. These are basics, and you will not believe how important basics are. Basics are the things that gets us adoption, people. Start with baby steps. Make them trust the technology they already have. Make them see that something they've already had can actually use for them before you bring them new bling and new cool features. Don't do that. Help them get used to what they already have. So let's talk about the role that Viva Connections is going to play in this. Okay. I know I have a lot to say about a lot. And only the last 5 minutes, I'm going to talk about Viva Connections, because I want you to focus on the first and the correct things first. Now, Viva Connections, of course, forms part of a bigger family. Okay. And soon there'll be a new one there, by the way. There's a new one coming. There's a fifth one. So Viva Connections consists of insights, topics, learning, and Viva Connections. Okay. I know that there's been a couple of sessions on that already, so I'm not going to go into depth with what all these covers. But insights, of course, very high level overview is all about well-being and, you know, the insights into how you work, how you collaborate, how many hours of meetings you sit in every day. It just makes me depressed, to be honest. Then, of course, topics, a little bit above my head, but topics, think of the hashtags that you see on social media. It's kind of like the layman's terms I use for topics, but topics helps knowledge management come out in companies, like frequently used terms, terminologies. And that's what topics is going to do. I'm not going to go into detail there, way above my pay grade. Viva Learning, brilliant. You can now bring learning into teams. And in case you didn't know this, it's free. There's a component that you pay for that's additional, but there's a lot of Viva Learning that's free for everyone, in case you didn't know that. I've managed to bring in Viva Learning and a document library from SharePoint with videos and things in and etc. without paying for a license, because there's certain things that you can get for free. And then don't forget that if you do want to tap into things like edX or I don't know, all the other platforms, you're going to have to pay for it, okay? Because you need the subscription on that side. Viva Learning doesn't cover that cost. But there's a lot of this that is free. There's a lot of insights that's free. When I say free, people, let's just agree that we all pay our Office 365 license, okay? So it's included in that cost. There's a big part of learning that's free. Connections is free. Nothing stopping you bringing it out there, but cover the basics first. So let's take a look at Viva Connections, okay? I just want to open up my Teams. So let's look at Microsoft Teams. So people are used to traditionally on an intranet, because that's how we know things. You would go to the top there and there's a drop down called business units. Then you go to a drop down that's called, I don't know, training as a business unit. And then you go to a drop down that's, let's say not training as a bad example. Let's say, I don't know, solutions and products. Then you have a drop down that says departments, of which one of them is training. Then you have a drop down that says, I don't know, content creation. Then you have a drop down that says evaluations. Then you have a drop down that says reporting on evaluations. That's how we navigated for years, and people still want that. They don't want it because it's good for them. They want it because it's what they know, and they're scared of change. And we're pushing them out of their comfort zones, and we're also pushing them out of their comfort zones without the correct training and empowerment. So that navigation thing is going to be a massive shock for them, because they want that. They want the intranet. That's why everyone grabbed onto hub sites. Everyone's connected through hub sites now. And I said, tell me the point of hub sites. Unless you have a massive intranet for a massive company, I don't see the point of hub sites. Because you have Teams. Why would you navigate through a site to get to a folder when most of your content sits in Teams? Of course, there's a place for it. I'm talking about everyday working stuff. So if I look at my teams, of course, I'm only going to see the teams I belong to. There's a lot of scary ones there under the hidden ones. But of course, I'm only going to see the teams that I belong to. So think flat file structure. It's not navigate, navigate, navigate. I'm going to see all of them, or I'm not going to see it. So if I think of Viva Connections, what does that allow us to do? Viva Connections allows me to select a site, identify a site asset, set up the settings, and deploy it into Microsoft Teams with a button. There you can see, top left-hand corner. It's called Home. I call it Home, and I give it a little house because it's the simplest way to know that that's the home button that goes to my intranet. So if I load, and I always got to make sure that it actually loads the correct site. Let me just check that. There we go. So if I load and I just got to zoom out. Oh, no, I don't have to. If I click on that home button, it loads my intranet. There's my intranet and my news articles and all my cool things. It's right there in Microsoft Teams. I didn't have to go to a browser. If I click on that home button again, it even brings up my top navigation, which hopefully I can reduce a bit because we really don't need to have so many of these things anymore. We really don't. What it also gives you is dashboards. Now, yes, I'm crazy enough to add dashboards as a link to my top navigation. Most people add them as web parts on the homepage. I'm like, I'm going to save some space. Dashboards are incredible with building targeted content for targeted audiences. One dashboard for the whole company and every person sees something different. Brilliant. I added mine as a button on my home navigation. I'm not going to force them straight there. The nice thing is they physically can't. So if I go back home, they can't get to the top navigation without loading the page. So if your company is all worried about people not reading the news, by the way, they still don't. If they're worried about people not reading the news, they still have to click on that button to get their top navigation. So this is one of the best things that Viva Connections brings us, is the ability to build dashboards, the way it brings in this targeted content for us into the mobile app as well. Also, of course, I'm not sure if I added it on the page, though I might have to. You can see that there's different feeds as well that you can bring in. There's a My feed, there's Viva Connections feeds you can bring in as web parts. There's the dashboard as well, just to show you what it looks like on the page. So it's starting to bring through the wayfinding component where you can discover things instead of navigating to it, if that makes sense. But make it as simple as possible for the user. That's supposed to be the point. As simple as possible for the user. So think of deploying your intranet straight into Microsoft Teams. It's a big win, and it's quite easy to do. You know how they always say to people that are younger, they say, you have no idea how easy you have it. In SharePoint 2007, we had to do this and this and this. Well, I can say that to you about Viva Connections, because last year I still had to deploy it with PowerShell. And I'm not a PowerShell girl. I'm a PowerPoint girl, okay? I had to figure out how to do it with PowerShell. And now you can do it in the admin center. Couple of buttons, add a logo, boom, there you go, deployed. Brilliant, brilliant. Think of deploying Viva Connections to your teams because it brings everything into one place of what they need to work with. Think of your top navigation. You got to slim that babies down, people. That top navigation is top heavy, pun intended. Start thinking about changing the way you do this. Start looking at dashboards. Think of a way that you can actually use your dashboards to bring in filtered content that used to be a click through in the navigation. Because you can bring targeted links and stuff in here to specific audiences based on Azure security groups, Microsoft 365 groups that sits behind Teams. Brilliant. Go build them. Dashboards is a brilliant way for people to navigate. So you can absolutely, because it's a link to a page, I added it to my top navigation. I didn't navigate through the site to get to it. I added it straight to my top navigation dashboard, and you can call it whatever you want. You can call it the toolbox, the employee toolbox, but keep it short and sweet. That's my toolbox, and all the employees has a toolbox. The apps and the processes that I work with is there. The content that I have to access on the intranet level is there. The important policies and procedures are there. Brilliant. Go check out the dashboards. So when I think of the navigation, if I think of wayfinding, if I think of how this has changed, it's completely changed from navigating through things to seeing what it is that I need. But this is going to be a massive change for your end users. Massive change. We had a cool chat on the session before this one. Marita and myself and whoever else was on the call. We were chatting about how IT people tend to just get things. And I said, it's actually not true. We don't just get things. We're just more focused on it because practice makes perfect. I'm going to absolutely throw this at you and you're not going to know what it means. But in Afrikaans, I say, Grieks word Frans and Frans word Afrikaans, which directly translated is like Greek becomes French becomes Afrikaans, which won't make sense. But for me, it's difficult, becomes easier over time. And as IT people, we tend to focus on the technology 50 to 75 to 95% of the time. Your end users focuses on their tasks based on their KPIs 99% of the time. And 1% of the time, they might have chance to learn new features. You have to give them time to learn it. If it's taken you 6 months to figure something out and accept it, it's going to take them a year with a lot of effort. Very, very important. So if I look at this, it's going to completely change the way that they navigate, and they're going to kick against it because it's completely different to what they're used to. They're going to feel insecure. They're going to be scared that they've lost their documents, that they can't find the thing that I'm working on now. Maybe my boss just mailed me and said, where's that report from last week, Monday? And full stress mode. I can't find it. And then I hate teams because that's what you do. You hate the thing closest to you. Works the same in relationships, isn't it? So think of Viva Connections. Think of your top navigation at the top there. Think of using dashboards. Explain to users how in teams now, I see all the teams I work with, regardless of hierarchy. They can move it up and down. They can pin it. They can show and hide it based on what works for them. I'm not enforcing hierarchical navigation to them anymore. But it's going to be a massive shock to their system. Show them forward slash files at the top in the command box. Show them the files button there to very quickly access all their recent files as well. Show them how to add Outlook as a tab on their team. Show them how to sync to a library down to the Explorer, and make sure that people know the dangers around it, because there is dangers around it. If you didn't make sure that your users know that they can delete everything on the site, then that's going to be a problem. So what do? Train your team owners to always set up an alert on deleted items on the site. Once a week summary, because you have 93 days to restore it out of the recycle bin. Empower your people to make better informed decisions. The technology we're using today is autonomous technology, which means that we're putting responsibility into their hands. They are not equipped to handle that responsibility, and it's not fair. We have to pass on the skill set when it comes to governance, when it comes to strategy, when it comes to management of things onto them. You can't just deploy teams like that. That's why things are going wrong. Very, very important for me. So that's just on the Viva Connection side. And that pretty much, look at me like finishing up so we can have a good chat. We said like 30 to 40 minutes. I'm quite happy to open up and look at some questions and for us to have a chat if there's something else you wanted me to show you as well. So before I move on, I just want to quickly mention something, okay, before we open up for questions. So some takeaways. Products do not fix problems. Maybe someone told you it does. It doesn't. Products does not fix problems. People fix problems with products. So what does that mean? You have to invest more into the people than you do into the products, people. It's amazing how we prepare to spend millions on products, but we don't want to spend money on the people, although the people are the thing that makes the products work. Be careful of cutting people out of the picture because your products are going to fail. It's a fact. We have to empower the people. And on that note, and you're not going to like this, training's got to be compulsory. I'm so sorry. I don't even take prisoners on that. I fight it all the way. Basic training needs to be compulsory. I'm not saying power up training and power automate training. I'm saying basic Windows, getting to things faster, searching better, using OneDrive and Teams better. Those things needs to be compulsory. If it's not, because you know what? Users say, oh, I don't need that. I've been using Teams already for 2 years. I'm like, yes, you have, but you've been using it really badly for 2 years. We need to fix a couple of things. It's not their fault. You cannot ask someone because we only know what we know and we don't know what we don't know. You cannot let them decide whether they need training. We know they need training. Put them through the basics. It doesn't have to be the whole Office 365 stack. Windows productivity, search, Teams, OneDrive, compulsory. Make it part of your induction program. This is definitely one of my favorite things. Stop being so hard on yourself. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know everything. If you suffer from imposter syndrome, by the way, welcome to the club. And believe me, it doesn't get better, it gets worse. Imposter syndrome gets worse. The more you know you don't know. It's like stupid inception. That's what happens with imposter syndrome. The more you know, the more stupid you feel. So surround yourself with the people who don't suck at the things you suck at. That's what the Microsoft community is all about. Surround yourself with the people who don't suck at the things you suck at. Become brilliant at the things you're really good at, and allow other people to be brilliant at what they're good at. You don't have to be brilliant at everything. You don't have to know everything. You just have to know everyone who does. Very important. Next up, by the way, before we open for questions, this crazy chick. That's not Tracy, by the way. Hashtag not Tracy, which is Liz Sunday. She's up next, okay? She's got a very stellar session as well with Viva coming up. I'm gonna show you now what she's gonna cover, so don't miss this session. This is my partner in crime, so we kind of get confused for each other. Hashtag not Tracy, hashtag not Liz. Her session's up next. And Liz is going to share some very, very cool planning and adoption and change management stuff here around Viva, which I think is brilliant. She's also going to, and I never touch on that, she's going to touch on the first line workers and the mobile access, etc. And she's also going to share a lot of tips and tricks around the remote and hybrid working, like scenarios, and how you can use the features on the apps to actually support you in that. So definitely go check out Liz's session, and that's going to bring me up onto the rate my session and calls to action. Let's do this. Let's look. Did we have any questions? So it doesn't look like a lot. Anya, it's often also a good idea to leave teams in which you are no longer actively involved or reading the messages. I totally agree, but maybe, Anya, sometimes just check, listen, with the owners of the team. What was the point of this team, people? Because you know that people are creating teams just for a meeting. You know that people have created teams just to share a document. You know that people are creating teams just because they didn't understand that they could create a chat or a group chat. So you know how many unnecessary teams are out there? It's crazy. So definitely check with our owners as well. Also, hide channels or absolutely hide channels, also hide chats. But we have to give the power back to the user to be able to do these things. So Nikolai, no questions from me. Want to say thank you for a really inspirational session. You're so welcome, Nikolai. Thanks for joining me. Marita, totally agree. Training needs to be compulsory. I can't say it better. Needs to be compulsory. So let's see, peeps. We've got enough. We've got a couple of minutes. Let's say 4 or 5 minutes for any questions. So I think if we ask Sarah nicely enough, she'll take your mutes away, and you can actually speak up with me if you wanted to. Anyone want to chat with me? We have about 4 minutes for another chat. They want to give me feedback. They want to say, Trace, you absolutely, I don't know what you're smoking, but that's nonsense. You're welcome to tell me that as well. Anyone that wants to have a chat with me?
I've opened the mics.
Thank you, Sarah. Anyone? Any feedback? Anything they wanted to add? That's always the problem, Sarah. I say so much that people are speechless. Marita, that's my sweet.
Hi, I can just start. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just to help to get the discussion going. Hopefully, some more are joining. You're the best. I mean, always inspiration to listen to.
Oh, thank you.
And I think, you know, how do you start introducing Viva to a customer? Or, well, that's not what you do. I mean, you do other things, but you don't talk about Viva. How do you bring it in?
So there's two sides to that, okay? I do talk about Viva. Because you know that thing we started years ago where we said, oh, don't call it SharePoint. I'm like, grow up, yeah. Susan. Yes. Call it SharePoint. Because you know what happens? You're going to call it something else, and then the person can't Google for help. Yeah. And now we're stuck with technology where they don't understand what the product is. That's like calling Excel something else because it's scary. Let's call it spreadies. I'm like, what's wrong with you people? Be grown up about this. Make them understand what it is so that they can help themselves, okay? So I definitely talk about Viva. But for me, Viva and everything else has become features in Teams. I don't see it as, oh, there's another product. Oh, there's another product. When I talk about these things, I'm like, hey, Oaks, there's another cool thing that we can now add to Teams to make your life easier. It's this cool feature called so-and-so Insights, or we've now put the intranet in there. I don't make it this massive thing of a new product or whatever. For me, everything is a feature in Teams, by the way. You've seen me, I even put my emails in there, okay? If I could make coffee and do my washing in Teams, I would.
I love that. I you know, we all learn from each other. So I haven't thought about that. You know, so that was an excellent hack,
no,
actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tracy,
yes.
This is Jeff Jubert. Just your content is fantastic, so thank you so much.
Thanks,
One of the things I missed, and I'm sorry that I'm asking this, I joined a little late, The home button, is that a Viva connection in Teams? Is
No,
that
no,
how?
no. Oh, yeah. So let me quickly go back. We don't have a lot of time. So, and I did write a blog on that somewhere, by the way. Let me just open my Teams. I'm being silly. Hold on. I've actually got a live team that I can show it in. So when you deploy Viva Connections, okay, you actually choose what you call the button and you choose the icon. So I deploy it as a home button with the name home on it because it's just much simpler.
Yeah, brilliant.
Then
Because I usually just put like a link to our intranet in a team, but this makes so much more sense.
Let me tell you what, Jeff, I did that for years and I was crying with everyone, Mark Cashman and Jeff Teeper. Every time I saw them, I was crying about, I want my intranet in Teams, and now I understand why. Because if you add your intranet as a tab on a team, it strips out the header, which was incredibly painful. Yeah. So I had to build my whole top navigation at the footer of the page again. I did that for years, though. I was like, I'm happy to do that. I have my intranet in Teams. But with Viva Connections, boom, you deploy it straight into Teams, and it's physically a button. It brings it in as the web, and it brings the global nav in here on the top left-hand side. So Viva Connections, brilliant. Go check it out. Yeah. And awesome. You don't need to pay additional for it. It's included in all the normal licenses.
Very cool. Thank you.
You're so welcome, Jeff. And I'll quickly see. So you used to do it with PowerShell. I must actually do a write-up blog. You can do it now in the admin center. It's much easier with global admin to deploy it in the admin center. Anyone else? I think Sarah's going to tell me to shush very soon. She's going to want to bring her slides up. Anyone else with a question that they wanted to ask or give me feedback or anything? Question for you, Sarah.
Yes.
So I know that the sessions are recorded. They're going to take it to YouTube. I saw that you said to the speakers that it's up to them if they want to share their slides or not. If yes. I share my slides with you, where can the people then find them?
That's a very good question. I will discover that and I will post a link into the chat on that.
So what I normally do as well, so of course the conference will still figure out that, but I always post my sessions on SlideShare as well. So normally after conferences, I will go and make it available as well. But please reach out on social media. Sarah saying thank you so much. You were a total rock star. You were the best moderator ever. And a wonderful conference. And everyone must have an incredible day. I'm going to stop sharing so that you can put your next stuff up. Everyone have a totally awesome day. I wish I could attend all the other sessions, but I can't. I've got some work to do for Prosecco. Remember, I work for Prosecco. That's how it works. But thank you very much, Sarah. Please take care. Please, thanks to everyone. Marita, was awesome to see you again, my sweets, and we'll catch up soon, hey?